Jonathan, can I ask a quick question, which is I use languages like Haskell and Python, where the layout is semantically significant. And I'm just curious as to how the assistive reading software manages to speak two spaces, four spaces, or significant spaces. I mean, in Haskell, you can always put in curly braces and semicolons, but typically they're written with indentation. How do spaces get spoken?
You can adjust your screen reader so it will speak things, but again, that can make it a lot longer if you're hearing like space, 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 space is
Yeah.
basically what it would say. It wouldn't say like four spaces. And so again, I think it's one of those things where, and I've seen that on the coders list, that people do have trouble with that, not being able to tell what's indented and how far and things like that. And I mean, there are ways to do it, but it takes you longer. And so again, that could be something that, you know, the screen reader users need to cooperate to create special things that would, you know, maybe count the spaces and just say how many, as opposed to space, 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 or something like that, or first level indent, or, you know, whatever it could say. So that would be very helpful.
Actually, such thing already exists. For example, speaking about NVDA, some people already wrote a script or an add-on that handles these indentation situations by beeps.
Okay.
And for example, if there are two spaces or four spaces or one tab, it changes the level, and even there are 16 spaces, the beeps are getting higher. If 12 spaces lower, and it's really possible to understand then about indentations.
Can I ask you, Paulius, how well does that work in practice? I hope I'm not sounding cynical, but I'm wanting to...
That's questionable. Personally, I don't use these tools, but maybe some other people like them. It's maybe up to everyone and individually. Personally, I prefer to maybe just memorize, for example, when coding in Python, how many tabs should I put when it comes to if this line belongs to if statement or if not. So maybe
different people have different preferences, right?
Sometimes you using arrow keys to put the cursor in the correct place. Sometimes using just memory to count down the spaces and type any space bars as I need. So it's personally, I don't use this plugin, but I know it exists, and it could be maybe helpful.
You mentioned, you used a very interesting phrase. You said using memory. It suggests to me that you're memorizing certain things, such as the current level of indentation or the level of indentation at some point in the program, which a sighted person could just pick up at a glance. They just sort of flick their eyes and they say, oh, okay, they're not lined up, or they are lined up. And I wonder if you or Jane could say more about the use of memory. Do you find you have to carry along a lot of stuff in your short-term memory?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think most blind people rely a lot on their memory. I know I do. I don't know what you would say, Paulius, but definitely. And I think that it's a thing where I think it can be developed, and people, you know, it can really work well. I mean, it's sort of like touch typing. I mean, you can learn to touch type very well without looking at keys, whether you're sighted or whether you're blind. And so, you know, I think that after a while, it comes more naturally to people to be able to really keep track of like what have I done and where am I. At the same time, one of the issues that comes up around that is, does it take a super blind person to be able to do the same thing that like an average sighted person can do in terms of coding? And that's one of the things I've been trying to think about in terms of career training, because there's a saying, everybody can code. And, it's like, what is it that a blind person needs to be able to be successful at this, which might be different than what a sighted person needs to be successful.
I'm going to say something in response to that, but before I do that, I'd like Paulius, if he wants to talk a bit more about the use of memory and short-term memory.
So I just don't know. It's kind of required maybe thing, I would say, because sometimes it is better to maybe memorize something, and it could become easier when, for example, solving such indentation problems. About maybe how much it could be possible to memorize, it's quite maybe difficult to say, but yes, it's sometimes required, and it helps in some situations.
Have you finished?
Maybe.